Now, Benjamin Crump is not standing by this phone call.
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our village pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership. Hey, up! Shut the fuck up!
There is a piece of audio that has been shared millions of times that people believe contains the truth about what happened to Nolan Wells. First, a boat call goes out to a roadside assistance service, and somewhere in the background of that call, voices seem to be saying things that, if real, would change everything about this case. Second, the attorney retained by Nolan's family, Benjamin Crump, one of the most prominent civil rights lawyers in the country, publicly distances himself from that very audio and says his team will get their own experts. Third, a man named Bart, who was physically present during that boat call, who was seen by witnesses on both sides of this case, says flatly that conversation never happened and Nolan Wells was not on that boat. Fourth, a video exists that has not been fully released that shows exactly what was happening on both boats during the moment that call was made, and what it shows does not match the transcript that went viral. This video is not about what we feel. It is not about what we want to be true. It is about separating what is documented from what has been manufactured and sitting with the difference. See, let's start from the beginning because context matters here, and this case has been stripped of it almost entirely. Nolan Wells was a young man, by every account someone people loved, someone with no enemies, someone described with the kind of warmth that makes a disappearance even harder to process. He went out to Horn Island, off the coast of Mississippi, with a group of people, on a day that multiple witnesses have described as a party atmosphere, sun, water, drinks, boats. He did not come back. That is the documented starting point, and everything else in this case, every theory, every audio clip, every accusation, has to be measured against what can actually be verified. Now here is where the first major thread begins. At some point during that day on the water, a call was placed to CTOW, a marine roadside assistance company, by a young man named Wyatt. The call is calm. That is not a contested point. Even people who believe something terrible happened to Nolan Wells acknowledge the caller sounds calm. Investigators and people familiar with boating have pointed out, and this is worth understanding clearly, that taking on water and sinking are not the same thing. A boat taking on water is a manageable problem, especially if you have people who know what they are doing and a tow service membership, which Wyatt references in the call. He mentions the membership specifically because CTOW charges differently based on membership level, and that detail alone tells you something about the tone of that call.
Now, Benjamin Crump is not standing by this phone call. Or the
What phone call?
He's not standing by the translation.
Oh, so the CTO, yeah, just give people context.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, the CTO call.
So one of the kids, I think it was Warren, right, makes a phone call to CTO, says, my boat's taking on water.
Wyatt.
Wyatt, sorry.
Yes,
Wyatt makes the phone call. He sounds calm. Well, if his boat was sinking, why was he calm? As a boater, okay, there's taking on water and there's sinking. They're different things. These guys party a lot. They know the boat well. They got a lot of people sitting on the boat. He is calm because he was calm. And it becomes very relevant in one moment. And he's talking to Cito. He says, I have an account. Why? Because Cito's going to charge you different. And they're going to come at a different rate based on whether or not you have an account and what level the account is than if you're just calling. Believe me, I know this. So, no offense to Cito, I'm a member. He is very calm, okay?
This is not a man screaming into a phone. This is a man working through a boat problem the way someone familiar with the water would. A man named Bart, whose attorney is Russ Latino, came out to help tow the boat, drain it, and resolve the issue. The CTOW call was ultimately canceled because the problem was addressed.
Or Bart Ermiston Jr., who is the Bart, who got on the boat to help them with the draining and towed them to let water come out of the boat, and then they were okay and they canceled the CTOW call. That Bart, who was seen by people on both sides, says no conversation like that took place. Nolan Wells was not on that boat. And he had nothing to do with anything that happened to Nolan Wells, though he knew him.
That is the documented sequence of that event. To now here is where the story fractures, because what actually happened that day on that water, and what millions of people came to believe happened are not the same thing. Somewhere along the way, a version of that sea towel call began circulating online, described as a sweetened version of the audio, meaning someone had processed it, amplified background noise, and added a transcript. And that transcript is the problem, because in the background of that call, according to this transcript, you can allegedly hear voices yelling about Nolan, asking what happened to him, telling him to wake up, describing what sounds like a person who is unconscious or worse on that boat. It went everywhere. It was shared by accounts with large followings. It was featured in coverage across multiple platforms, and it fundamentally reshaped public perception of what happened that day.
Now comes this sweetened version of the audio, and a woman makes the case, and she sounds very well versed in audio editing. She did this, she did that, she did this, she did that. And then, with an adjoining transcript, there seems to be a background conversation that is of a completely different tone and tenor than the phone call from Wyatt. Wyatt, as I said, that's how he is. In the background, there seems to be a conversation, according to the transcript, yelling at this guy, Bart, and what happened to Nolan and what's going on. Nolan, wake up, and this and that. It sounds like someone's dead or dying on the boat with them. And it is.
But here is what the documented record actually shows us about that audio. Bart, the man who was physically on the scene, who was present during that call, who helped tow the boat, says on the record that no conversation like that took place and that Nolan Wells was not on that boat. That is not a rumor. That is a sourced, direct denial from someone who was there and who has been identified by people on both sides of this case. And then there is the video.
Yeah, and Chris, I can add more. I saw the video of them on the boat during the phone call. Now, I presented it in part. It's the one that you see all over TMZ, all over the news. It has Deofficer Tatum on it, and you see a quick glimpse of that boat. Well, I have the full video. And the only reason that I don't want to put the video out and the lawyers are against it, because there's other people that's not involved in this that are featured on the video.
Was Nolan Wells on the boat?
No, he's not on the boat. And the pan, let me tell you, it's interesting, right? These kids, this is my perception for what I see on the boat. They're having a good time. I would argue that some of them are having such a good time that half of the people are concerned and half of the people don't know what's going on. There's two boats. There's the boat that Bart is running to tow, and there's the boat that Warren and them are on. And some people are having such a good time that they're like joking about it. They're not even thinking it is happening. And then you have, Warren's side or Wyatt's side where I can see Wyatt on the phone talking to Cito. Nolan is nowhere to be found. No activity is really going on the other boat.
A 36-second video exists, believed to have originated from a snapshot recording that was captured during the same window of time as the Sea Tao call. This video has not been fully released, and the reason given for that, which is worth sitting with, is that it contains faces of people who were not involved in this case and who have not given permission for their image to be used publicly. That is a documented reason for withholding it. It is not a cover-up. It is a privacy consideration. But here is what people who have reviewed the full video have said on the record. The video pans across both boats. You can see the vast majority of people on Wyatt's boat. You can see the vast majority of people on Bart's boat. Nolan Wells is not visible on either boat. There is no frantic activity. There is no visible sign of distress. There are people laughing. There are people joking about whether the other boat is actually sinking. There is a woman on one of the boats who is yelling and being loud, and people who have reviewed the audio have noted that her voice may have carried into the background of the Sea Tao call. Not because of anything sinister, because boats were physically close together at certain points. People were talking and laughing, and sound does not obey the narrative we want it to tell.
So you don't see any corresponding activity that would suggest the urgency and the dialogue that is in the transcript of the sweetened audio?
No, there's a girl on that boat that's yelling because she's having a good time and she's screaming and she's talking loud and whatever. And I don't know if that translated to the phone call because she's on an opposite boat, and at one point in the video, the boats are together like this. Because people are trying to get on this boat to the other boat and do all that, and they're all having a good time. If you know what I'm saying, they had a good time out there. So
there is no sign of distress.
No,
there is no kind of frantic or yelling or controversy.
No, it's what the yelling that I hear on the video is people seem to had a good time, and they're yelling and saying all kind of crazy. They laughing, and
that is the moment that he is calling Cito and being towed.
It has to be some portion of it. The video that I saw was, I think it was a Snapchat that somebody had taken, or they recorded somebody's Snapchat or something like that, and it's only like 36 seconds. But in this entire video, it pans from Bart's boat, it pans around, and there's some people faces in there that are not involved at all, and so that's kind of why we didn't put it out without their permission. And then it pans over to Wyatt's boat, which is what I released, like a 3-second thing. It pans over to Wyatt's boat, and it comes back over to Bart's boat, so you can see 99%. You can see everybody that's on Wyatt's boat. You can see 99% of people that's on Bart's boat. Nobody's in distress. Some people are joking.
And this is the first major media literacy moment in this case, and it is worth naming directly. A transcript placed over unclear audio does not reveal what is there. It tells you what to hear. This is documented cognitive science. It is called the power of suggestion, and it is precisely why any credible forensic audio analysis, meaning one done by a trained and neutral expert, would never layer a transcript onto an audio sample before presenting it for public interpretation.
And here's the thing. People mad at me because I say this as if I'm making this up. Like, we shared the video. The thing is that this is consistent with an account of 2 witnesses who spoke to police that said they saw Nolan on the island after this had already happened. So that confirms.
The transcript came first. The interpretation followed, and millions of people heard exactly what the transcript told them to hear. Now, here is the detail in this case that is genuinely underexplored, and it matters. At least 2 witnesses reportedly told police that they saw Nolan Wells on Horn Island after the boat incident had already occurred. Let that settle. If those witness accounts are accurate, and they were provided to law enforcement, then the timeline that the viral audio was used to construct, the one where Nolan was unconscious or dead on a boat during that Sea Tao call, is not just unproven. It is contradicted by eyewitness testimony already in the hands of investigators. This is not a point that has been widely discussed in public coverage of this case. Most of the attention has been on the audio. Very little attention has been given to the fact that law enforcement reportedly spoke to 60 witnesses in the weeks following Nolan's disappearance, and that at least 2 of those witnesses place him alive on that island after the boat call happened. That is the documented record, and it deserves the same weight as every other claim in this case.
It says in an unbiased way.
And also, look, there's so many witnesses there. If Nolan was on that boat and something was done to him, there's no way. You're right about reticence of wanting to come forward, especially once the media circus started. But there's no way investigators don't have that.
Here is where I want to pause and ask you something directly, because this is a genuine open question the record does not fully resolve. If Nolan was seen on the island after that boat call, why has that information not shifted the public conversation more than it has? Is it because people do not trust the source of that claim? Is it because the viral audio arrived first and settled into people's understanding before the witness accounts could complicate it? Or is there something about this case? Something about the image of it, one black young man and a group of white friends in Mississippi where one did not come home. That makes people resistant to information that moves away from the most sinister explanation. That is a real question. It does not have a clean answer. And I am genuinely asking you to leave your answer in the comments because it goes to something important about how we process these cases. Ben Crump is representing the Wells family. He is a lawyer with a documented record in high-profile cases, and when he speaks, it carries weight. And here is what is documented about his position on this audio. He did not release it. He did not present it as evidence of anything. In a recent interview, he stated publicly that his team would retain their own experts to analyze the audio. That statement is significant and not for the reason many people assume. It does not mean the family believes the audio is real. It means the family's own legal counsel has not validated it.
She's professional at all in actually translating or doing whatever she claims she did with the audio. Any audio technician that wants to give a fair forensic explanation of what's really on the audio will never put a transcript on the audio. That leads to confirmation bias. If I promise you right now, Chris, if I did it, I almost had my team do it. Change out the words, put it out to the public, and when people see the words, they're going to hear what they want to, what they think they saw.
There is a power of suggestion that goes to that, and that's why they have the sweetening experts, and then they have the dialogue experts.
Yeah, you can't.
It
just
is
go and
interesting
do
that
it
I have not heard the family, or specifically Benjamin Crump as counsel, put out this call as proof of anything.
And let me tell you this: they not only didn't put it out as proof. Benjamin Crump on an interview, I forget the Black Vlog interview he just did recently. I think his most recent interview. He said, we're going to get our own experts to do this, which means that he did not validate or.
There is a meaningful difference between a piece of audio circulating on social media and that same audio being presented by legal counsel as verified evidence. Benjamin Crump is experienced enough to know that difference. His decision to say we will get our own experts, rather than this audio proves what happened, is itself a data point. And then there is the narrative about how the boys responded to the investigation, which has been consistently framed in a way that the documented record does not fully support.
Oh,
No
100%.
way.
Here's
No way.
Here's the thing that I think that Nolan's parents and Benjamin Crump pushed in the beginning, which I think caused all this. Why wouldn't they just be honest and tell that law enforcement had spoke to 60 witnesses right when Nolan had died, 3 weeks before this? They acted as if the boys weren't cooperating. She said they pushed it out there that they lawyered up immediately. No, Warren is the only one that got a lawyer because his stepmom's a judge, and she's smart enough to not let her kid go into the lion's den with no representation, which every parent, responsible parent who has the means to, will make sure your kid has a lawyer no matter what. The other boys didn't have a lawyer. They went and talked to police and did a computer voice stress analysis with no.
The claim that all of the boys immediately lawyered up has been repeated often. It reads as suspicious. But here is what is actually documented. One of the young men, Warren, had a parent who is a judge. That parent made the decision, which any parent with legal knowledge would make, to ensure their child had representation before speaking to investigators. The other young men, according to accounts from people close to this case, spoke to police without attorneys present, and at least some of them voluntarily submitted to a computer voice stress analysis, which is a form of interview tool used by law enforcement. That is not a group of people refusing to cooperate. That is a group of people, some of whom cooperated without any legal protection at all. Getting a lawyer is not a confession. It is a constitutional right. It is worth saying clearly, because in the court of public opinion, it has been treated as evidence of guilt, and it is not.
Listen, Chris, this is why we have Miranda rights, right? This is a right.
Yeah, but that's only when they're taking you into custody.
No,
they can come in, come talk to me, and before you know it,
Well, here's the thing. If you interview a person and they are not free to leave, and you have not made it clear, or you have not read the Miranda rights, then you don't have a right to talk to them whatsoever.
That's right.
When we bring a person in because we have an investigatory reason to talk to them, meaning that, like if you listen to it, your statements can be used against you in the court of law. So voluntarily coming into the police station is not automatic that it's all very clear that you can leave.
Right.
Once we get you in the interrogation room, are you under the impression that you can just walk out of this at any time? And are you aware that whatever statements that you give to me can be used against you in the court of law? This is not off the record. So
having a lawyer is not necessarily
everybody
reason for suspicion.
I'm a police advocate, and you better never talk to a police officer without representation in a situation like this.
2. The documented record in the Nolan Wells case is incomplete. That is the honest summary. There are real questions that have not been answered. There is a timeline that has gaps. There is a cause of death that has not been publicly confirmed. There are witness accounts that have not been fully aired publicly.
He did not think
A lot of people went with that audio, though. A lot of people with big platforms.
I know they did, and they were wrong. And I'm gonna tell you this. Chris. I'm being honest. Some people did it because they actually believed it, because they have no experience in investigations. They don't critically think about these things because they're not seeing that people can manipulate on such a scale. There are others that have ran with it because it's lucrative. If I go and put out Toe shows everything, Nolan Wells was dead on a boat, and I push it and pushing it, I'm gonna get millions of views. And some people are like, I'd rather get the views knowing that I'm absolved of any responsibility because it's not my video. So I'm gonna push it until I can get enough of it, and then I'm gonna move on to something else and go, wow, we were lied to. That's crazy. It's like, no, a responsible investigator or a person that's doing due diligence will say, let me make sure that's what that says before I am caught pushing a audio that's saying that Nolan is being killed or he's dead on a boat, which implicates, I don't know.
What is documented is this: a viral audio drove a narrative. That audio has not been validated by the family's own legal team. A man who was physically present denies the conversation on that audio ever occurred. Video evidence reviewed by investigators and others shows no visible distress during the time of the sea towel call. And at least 2 witnesses reportedly placed Nolan Wells alive on that island after the boat incident. None of that resolves this case. But it does tell you something about the distance between what went viral and what can actually be verified. There is still more to come in this case. Forensic analysis is reportedly ongoing. Witnesses are still being identified, and the family's legal team has indicated they are not done pursuing answers. We will be following every documented development as it becomes part of the public record. If you have followed this case from the beginning, leave your read on it in the comments, especially on the witness accounts, and why you think that detail has not gotten more attention. What we owe Nolan Wells is the truth, not the version that spreads the fastest,